Chapter 21. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After this case, Oka, the current captain of the Imperial Capital Guard, was also caught in a storm, because Arya's family gave Oka up in court. Oka was charged with shielding Arya's family. That kid acted so quickly. And that damn kid, Saryu, was also with him, because there were officials in the court who were in cahoots with Oka. Oka learned about these things at the first time, and knew that Bai Ye and Saryu did it. At this time, his face was extremely gloomy. Although he had a way to calm down this somewhat serious trouble, that method was also very troublesome to operate. At least, he could delay this matter for a while, and during this time, he must make that kid and Saryu disappear from the face of the earth. Otherwise, he would not be able to rest in peace, and keeping those two people would cause endless troubles. In fact, Oka had already thought of a plan, and now he just needed to implement it. Didn't that damn kid Saryu want to become stronger? Then induce her to participate in the experiment of the Imperial device. So far, there has been no chance of survival in that experiment. All the test subjects have been killed by the Imperial device without exception. Getting rid of Sylph is undoubtedly the easiest. As for Bai Ye, it is a bit more troublesome. After all, he has some relationship with General Death. If he is not careful, he may be doomed, but he must get rid of Bai Ye no matter what. At this moment, Bai Ye and Sylph have left the court and are on their way back to the headquarters of the Imperial Capital Guard. Sylph, when you killed people at that time, didn't you feel any discomfort? At this time, Bai Ye suddenly asked. No. It's refreshing to get rid of those evil guys. Sylph looked morbidly excited, and a blush appeared on her cheeks, as if she enjoyed the moment of slaughter at that time. Bai Ye suddenly felt that Sylph's problem was really serious. He is too obsessed with justice and evil, even to the point of being almost insane, similar to his Death's extreme law of the jungle. Celia also has an extremely distorted sense of justice, regardless of whether the crimes of others are minor or serious. Celia treats them all equally and uses lynching to kill anyone who is tainted with sin. Although this extremely murderous and decisive behavior cannot be said to be right or wrong, it cannot be said to be justice. Bai Ye believes that as long as it is an act of killing, no matter what the reason is, there is no justice. He can be merciless to his enemies, but he will definitely not regard himself as justice. Bai Ye feels that Celia's most serious problem is that Celia judges evil subjectively. Once Celia cannot distinguish right from wrong, he will go further and further in an extremely distorted direction. There is almost no absolute justice and evil in this world, so Celia's problem is not ordinary serious. Bai Ye thought that if there was a chance, he should guide Sai Lu, so that Sai Lu would not go further and further on the extremely twisted road. As for now, he did not intend to deliberately talk to Sai Lu about any great principles. For Sai Lu's situation, it was probably useless to talk about those principles. By the way, Vice Captain Bai Ye, just now in the court, your conversation with that guy. Sai Lu seemed to be a little concerned about the conversation between Bai Ye and Arya at that time. What's so cute about that kind of evil person? She didn't say it too directly, she even felt that the guy's sinful face made her feel sick. Let's put it one way or another, her appearance is indeed cute, but her heart is twisted and dark. Bai Ye said frankly, what I said at that time was also to hope that she could recognize her crimes in the dungeon. If possible, he certainly hoped that Arya could at least know where she was wrong, instead of being dissatisfied like Arya's parents until they were sentenced to death, thinking that those livestock deserved to die. The death penalty is much more painful than life imprisonment in the dungeon. On the other hand, Arya, who was sentenced to life imprisonment, still has a chance to redeem herself. Then, am I not cuter than her? At this moment, Sai Lu said in a low voice. She seemed a little embarrassed, and a faint blush appeared on her face. Bai Ye was slightly stunned, and then smiled and said, of course Sai Lu is cute, but when she tortured those people and made their limbs fly everywhere, she is a little less cute. That can't be helped. Who let those guys be tainted with evil? Sai Lu muttered a little aggrieved. Bai Ye didn't say anything more. He didn't expect to change Sai Lu in a short time. Bai Ye and Sai Lu are of course not always acting together, a vice captain and a new member, each of them has their own duties. Bai Ye's duties are very easy, while Sai Lu has to go out frequently. Oka took this opportunity to send someone to lure Sai Lu. As for Bai Ye, Oka was waiting for Bai Ye to go out. You should be Miss Sai Lu of the Imperial Capital Guard, right? At this time, a man in formal clothes found Sai Lu who was patrolling on the street. Yes, I am Sai Lu of the Imperial Capital Guard. What do you want to do with me? Or is there anything I can help you with? Sai Lu said with a friendly smile. It's like this, I am a staff member of the testing institution directly under the royal family. We selected you to participate in the Imperial weapon test, so we came to you on purpose. The man explained his purpose. Imperial weapon test? Sai Lu was immediately very interested. Is it the legendary very powerful Imperial weapon? Yes, that Imperial weapon is called Magic Beast Transformation 100-Armed Giant, but it has not found a suitable owner yet. We think you have great hope. The man smiled, although the smile was a little fake, but Sai Lu didn't see it. Really? Sai Lu was immediately excited, because she wanted a stronger power that would allow her to enforce justice, and the Imperial weapon was the most powerful weapon known to everyone. She naturally didn't want to miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I want to participate. Okay, thank you very much for your support, Miss Sai Lu, then Miss Sai Lu can come with me now. Then, Sai Lu followed the other party. On the other side, Bai Ye finally went out for something. He received a letter of complaint from a civilian, so he was going to investigate the relevant matters, but when he was halfway there, he suddenly realized that someone was secretly following him, and there was more than one person. He seems to be quite skilled and well hidden, which is definitely not something that ordinary people can do. Could he be a killer who came to assassinate him? Then, Bai Ye deliberately went to a remote alley with few people. At this time, he suddenly stopped and said in a calm tone, "Come out, a few sneaky rats." P.S. The third update is finished, please give me some gifts. Chapter 22. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Bai Ye finished speaking, 3 figures appeared from the darkness in 3 directions. After a while, the 3 figures slowly walked out of the dark corner. Your awareness is really good. You actually noticed us. So that's it. Did you lead us here on purpose? Sure enough, the target of this assassination is not simple. It's a pity that your opponent is us. The voices of these 3 people were a little frivolous, and they obviously didn't take Bai Ye seriously. Really? It seems that you are the assassin sent by Uka. Bai Ye said lightly. At present, the one who has the biggest conflict with him is Uka, and it can even be said that he is the only one who has a conflict with him. The other party did not deny it. One of the bald strong men with stubble on his face said sternly, "Since you know this, then just accept your death obediently. We may be able to give you a quick death." Another woman with revealing clothes and heavy makeup held a whip in her hand and whipped the ground with a crackling sound. Don't waste time talking to him, and make a quick decision and get the job done as soon as possible. However, the tall and thin man with a blood-red sword in his hand had already started, and was the first to kill Bai Ye. Bai Ye looked calm and indifferent, but he was not careless at all. He immediately took out the black and white swords on his back and fought with only the insight of the 2 gods. He had seen through the actions of the tall and thin man. Bai Ye immediately took a step forward to meet the opponent, blocked and deflected the opponent's blood-red sword with his 2 swords, and then seized this gap to counterattack. Bai Ye's left-handed black sword should have been able to stab the tall and thin man's throat, but the opponent's neck suddenly shrank back, like a rubber man, and the control of the flesh reached a weird degree. So Bai Ye's black sword failed to touch the tall and thin man's neck. Although his left-handed white sword followed closely, it only cut a hole in the opponent's neck and did not cause fatal injuries. The tall and thin man realized that the situation was not good and quickly retreated. Bai Ye did not pursue because the other 2 killers also came to kill him. It's really embarrassing. I was beaten by this kid and ran away. The heavily made-up woman laughed at the tall and thin man when she launched the attack. The tall and thin man was immediately a little angry because of the ridicule. Just take care of yourself. Don't underestimate the enemy. Only the bald strong man had the most serious expression and reminded in a deep voice, from the first fight between Bai Ye and his companion just now, it can be seen that the strength of this young man is indeed not simple. Although he didn't think that the young man could defeat the 3 of them, if he let the young man escape, they would not only lose the bounty, but also lose their reputation. In a blink of an eye, Bai Ye was facing a situation of being attacked by 3 people. In this situation, the insight of his Mangekyō Sharingan was not very useful, because his physical skills were not stronger than those three people, and the other party was not a weak minion, and even cooperated. Bai Ye's speed was still not fast enough. Even if he could see through the movements of the three people at the same time, he couldn't dodge the attacks of the three people at the same time. The other party's tacit cooperation had blocked his retreat. Faced with this situation, Bai Ye had no choice but to use the pupil technique of the double divine power. At this time, he deliberately didn't dodge, and let the heavily made-up woman whip him. Success! The heavily made-up woman was ecstatic when she found that Bai Ye couldn't dodge. Because she liked to use the whip to ravage this kind of handsome boy, however, a strange scene happened. The whip went straight through Bai Ye's body and landed on the tall and thin man who was trying to sneak attack Bai Ye from behind. With a snap, the tall and thin man screamed, "Ah! What are you doing, you crazy woman?" I don't know." The heavily made-up woman was stunned. Why didn't she hit Bai Ye with the whip just now, but hit the person behind Bai Ye? Bai Ye would not miss this opportunity and pierced the heart of the heavily made-up woman with the white sword in his left hand. This is the power of virtualization. While being invincible, he can also find opportunities to counterattack at any time. Of course, if he wants to touch the opponent when attacking, he must turn off virtualization, otherwise not only the opponent can't touch him, but he can't touch the opponent either. The heavily made-up woman looked at Bai Ye in disbelief, her eyes wide open, full of fear and confusion. But the only response to her was Bai Ye's cold and ruthless blood pupils. Then the heavily made-up woman fell to the ground. With her eyes wide open, ding! The host killed the Royal Fist Temple Master and received a reward, 9 system points. It can be seen that although the whip in the hand of this heavily made-up woman is not a servant tool, its strength is about the same as that of an ordinary servant tool user. The two assassins are estimated to have the same strength as the minister's weapon users. As for the so-called Imperial Fist Temple, Bai Ye is not sure what it is, and will slowly investigate it after returning. In fact, the Imperial Fist Temple is an institution dedicated to cultivating physical talents for the Empire, and attaches great importance to physical training. The strongest among them, the 4 Rakshasa ghosts, have been trained to the point where they can control their bodies at will, and can even compete with ordinary Imperial weapon users with bare hands. However, these 3 guys are obviously not the 4 Rakshasa ghosts, because the 4 Rakshasa ghosts are the minister's private executioners, and they are not people like Uka who can invite them. Li Mei. She's dead. Seeing the heavily made-up woman fall to the ground and die, the tall and thin man suddenly looked unbelievable. They came to assassinate Bai Ye with full confidence this time, but they lost one person after a short while. The bald strong man frowned and shouted angrily, "We must kill him and avenge Li Mei." It just so happened that Bai Ye wanted to get rid of the remaining 2 guys together. The bald man had no weapons, but he had a lot of strength. Once he caught someone, he would pay a terrible price. It was a basic operation for him to tear off someone's hands and feet. This guy was the most difficult person among the 3, however. Bai Ye was also very decisive. The power of his left eye was directly focused on the neck of the bald man, and the space on his neck was distorted. The power of the left eye, also known as the offensive power, can achieve attack by distorting space. As for where to distort the space, you only need to focus on the left eye. The most buggy part of this pupil technique is that it can ignore all physical defenses. No matter how high the physical defense is, it is meaningless in the face of space distortion. In the case of a single left eye, the speed of distorting space is already very fast, and the power of both eyes has accelerated the distortion speed. Most people can't dodge it at all. What? The bald man suddenly felt a strong sense of crisis. The space in the weak part of the neck was torn for some reason, which made him very uneasy. His strength was stronger than that of an ordinary servant, but before he could even react to what was happening, his neck was broken in an instant. Chapter 23. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the bald man's neck was twisted, his head rolled to the ground, his expression frozen at the moment before death. It is estimated that he did not even know how he died. Bai Ye also gained system points. Ding. The host killed the Imperial Fist Temple Master and received a reward, 12 system points. However, the use of the offensive divine power pupil technique just now also consumed a lot of energy for Bai Ye. 1 defensive divine power void and 1 offensive divine power space distortion, a total of 2 pupil techniques. His body has almost reached the limit. Of course, this limit refers to the limit that does not affect his normal combat. If Bai Ye uses the pupil technique for the 3rd time in a short period of time, his body will be so weak that it will affect his normal combat. It can be seen from this that his current 40 points of physique attribute is still far from enough, but at least it is much better than the situation where he was weak after using the pupil technique once at the beginning. Although he can kill the remaining tall and thin man in seconds with another offensive divine power, it is no longer necessary. He can win with the basic ability of the Mangekyō Sharingan alone. There is no need to overload his body. After all, it is not completely certain whether there will be other killers next. This is for prudent considerations. System points, 21. Ding. The host exchanged Constitution *15, deducted system points *15. Ding. The host exchanged Strength *3, deducted system points *3. Ding. The host exchanged Agility *3, deducted system points *3. In order to be more prudent, Bai Ye also exchanged the system points he just got into the corresponding attributes, Constitution, 55, Strength, 30, Agility, 30, with the substantial increase in the Constitution attribute, Bai Ye's body has recovered a lot. At the same time, with the successive deaths of Li Mei and the bald strong man, and both died in a very strange way, the tall and thin man was stunned. When the tall and thin man was stunned, Bai Ye had already killed him. Within 3 moves, the opponent was beheaded. At first, Bai Ye just didn't understand this guy's ability to control his body. After having enough information, it was naturally much easier to deal with him. Ding. The host killed the Royal Fist Temple Master and received a reward, 9 system points. Ding. The host exchanged Physique *9, deducted system points *9. Physique, 64, Bai Ye exchanged the system points for Physique as soon as possible. Then, he turned around and left the alley, looking calm as if nothing had happened just now. He was not in a hurry to go back to settle accounts with Uka. He didn't forget his work. It wouldn't be too late to go back after completing the work. On the other side, in a monotonous white room, after the staff completed the compatibility check on Sayu, the biological Imperial Weapon Warcraft transformation 100-armed giant in the nutrient solution container next to it miraculously reacted to Sayu. This had never happened before. Because the 100-armed titan would not move at all when facing unsuitable test subjects, Celia noticed that there were many corpses in the room wrapped in body bags, but she was naive and just felt puzzled and didn't think too much about it. In this way, this Imperial weapon test was very easy to succeed on Celia. She became the only one who did not die in the test, and the only one who succeeded in the Imperial Weapon Magic Beast Transformation 100-armed Titan. At this time, Celia was holding a small dog with a large area of white on its body, and its 2 eyes were small black dots, which looked very cute. Celia and Xiaobi. It kept rubbing its head against Celia, looking very intimate, and obviously recognized Celia as its master. Only then did the staff dare to open the very solid and heavy steel door and walk in. They all looked at Celia with eyes as if they had seen a miracle, especially the staff who colluded with Uka. He was the most shocked. Originally, he was commissioned by Uka to let this girl die in this accident, but he didn't expect that this girl was the only successful test subject. It turned out that he had planted a willow tree by accident and it became a forest. This guy's face changed very quickly. The importance of having a successful test subject is much higher than that of Uka. Now that Celia has successfully become the master of this 100-armed giant, he will definitely not have the idea of harming Celia again. The Imperial weapon user is a very important combat force for the Empire. He does not intend to tell Uka the results of the test. To be more precise, he intends to directly sever his relationship with Uka, just as if it were something nothing happened. Congratulations, Miss Selu, your experiment was very successful, and now it is an Imperial weapon bound to you. At this time, he smiled and congratulated Selu. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Selu was immediately grateful. She had no idea that she was supposed to be a victim, but she got the Imperial weapon by accident. The staff were embarrassed to accept Selu's thanks, and they directly avoided the topic. Then Miss Selu should adapt to the ability of the Imperial weapon after returning. and practice more tacit understanding with it. Okay. Then, Seilu happily went back with the 100-armed giant. On the way back to the Imperial Capital Guard, Seilu lifted the puppy up. I think I should give you a name. It's too troublesome to call you by your full name. Chio. The 100-armed giant made a sound, as if it could understand what Seilu said. Seilu thought for a while and came up with a name. Let's call you Xiao Bai, also translated as Xiao Ku. How do you feel? Xiao Bai's hands and feet immediately swung, and it seemed that it also liked the name Seilu gave it. Then I will be your partner from now on, Xiao Bai. Seilu held Xiao Bai. She did not regard Xiao Bai as a pure weapon, but as a partner. I will take you to meet Vice Captain Bai Ye first. He is also our partner of justice. Seilu said this because she believed that it was her heart of justice that made Xiao Bai respond to her, so she thought Xiao Bai would definitely like Vice Captain Bai Ye very much. Seilu took Xiao Bai and ran back to the Imperial Capital Guard. However, she looked around but could not find Vice Captain Bai Ye, so she had to go to Uka to ask. Uka was surprised to find that Seilu was back alive. Could it be that the guy has not started to act yet? The efficiency is so slow. Although Uka knew about the 100-armed Titan Imperial weapon, he had never seen what it looked like, so he did not recognize that the little bit behind Seilu was the 100-armed Titan. After all, no one had ever successfully tested it, so he directly thought that the staff member had not started to act yet. Moreover, Little Bit hid behind Seilu's heels with a timid look, and poked his head out to peek at Uka. And he did not have the momentum that an Imperial weapon should have. Do you want to know where Bai Ye is? Hearing Seilu's intention, Uka laughed and said sarcastically, he is probably already dismembered. I can show you his body. What? Seilu's face was stagnant for a moment. When she reacted, her facial expression instantly became hideous, and she said coldly. Little Bit, prepare to judge the sin. Chapter 24. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Under the command of Seiyu, Xiaobi's body suddenly began to grow huge. The ability of the Imperial Weapon 100-armed Titan is to grow huge, and its strength and defense will be strengthened accordingly. Moreover, as long as the core is not broken, it will continue to regenerate even if it is injured. Xiaobi also has a secret skill called Frenzy, which can make the body even bigger and even full of muscles, and strengthen it to a great extent in all aspects, but there is a side effect that it will be unable to move for the next few months. In Seiyu's eyes, Vice Captain Bai Ye is her closest person and the justice she admires the most. Uka was already tainted with evil, and now he has killed her most important Vice Captain Bai Ye. She must not allow such evil to continue to survive in the world. Looking at Xiaobi, who has grown dozens of times behind Seiyu, the smile on Uka's face suddenly stopped. What is this? Uka has not yet realized that this is the Imperial Weapon 100-armed Titan. Seiyu will not waste time talking to Uka, and directly let Xiaobi attack Uka. After Uka recovered from the shock, he realized that this should be some kind of biological Imperial weapon, and it might even be the monster transformation 100-armed giant. This damn kid actually succeeded in the experiment with the Imperial weapon. However, Xiaobi had already rushed over, and Uka didn't have the heart to think about it anymore. He immediately drew his sword to resist, but he didn't have the confidence, because the Imperial weapon was too powerful. Even if his sword was not an ordinary weapon, it was not comparable to the Imperial weapon at all, and it was not even comparable to the Minister weapon. His physical skills were very strong, but they were still not enough in front of the Imperial weapon, and Uka's opponent was not only Xiaobi, but also Seiyu. Uka's attention was completely attracted by Xiaobi, and he ignored Seiyu in this brief moment. Xiaobi's power was very strong, and Uka, who was unable to resist, retreated again and again. At this time, Seiyu stepped directly on Xiaobi's back, climbed over Xiaobi's head, and slashed down with the big sword in his hand, slashing towards Uka's head. Uka realized that Seiyu could fight, but he was too late to react. He was pushed to the limit by Xiaobi and was unable to resist. The next moment, Uka's head exploded. Xiaobi, eat the sin, Seiyu said coldly. Xiaobi immediately opened his mouth and swallowed Uka's whole body. After the battle, Seiyu's ferocious expression returned to normal, and her legs limply sat on the ground in a duck-like posture. Her eyes were red, but she also smiled. Vice Captain Bai Ye, I have avenged you. I will inherit your long-cherished wish and implement justice to the last moment of my life. However, at this time, Bai Ye came back. The battle just now caused a huge commotion, which triggered a riot at the headquarters of the Imperial Capital Guard. Bai Ye also heard the commotion and rushed over immediately. As a result, he saw blood and broken meat all over the ground. Although he didn't see Uka's body, Xiaobi's bloody mouth almost explained the situation. At the same time, he also heard what Sai Lu said, and his mouth twitched slightly, and he couldn't help but complain, "Sai Lu, I'm not dead yet." Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice behind him, and Sai Lu thought he was hallucinating at first. She looked back with a look of astonishment, and she really saw Bai Ye alive. Sai Lu immediately stood up and threw himself into Bai Ye's arms. Bai Ye almost subconsciously used virtualization to avoid this, but he still restrained himself. After all, Sai Lu didn't have any murderous intentions. "Vice Captain Bai Ye. I thought you had. As she spoke, Sai Lu couldn't help crying. She was really surprised and excited to see that Vice Captain Bai Ye was still alive. "It seems that Uka told you something." Bai Ye has realized the general situation and explained to Sai Yu, "There are indeed 3 assassins from the Royal Fist Temple who want to assassinate me, but I killed them all." "Then Vice Captain Bai Ye is not injured." Sai Yu immediately wanted to lift up Bai Ye's shirt to check the injury. This was stopped by Bai Ye, and he said calmly, "Of course not, those guys can't hurt me." "Awesome," Sai Yu praised. "I have also eliminated Uka, these evil guys should be expelled." After saying that, Sai Yu showed an expectant look in his eyes and his head moved forward slightly. It seems that he is looking forward to being praised by Vice Captain Bai Ye, and also looking forward to being patted on the head. Seeing this, Bai Ye suddenly hesitated, because if the praise is not appropriate, it may make Sai Yu even more extremely twisted. Now Sai Yu Lu is already amazing, if things continue like this. "Sai Lu, well done." Bai Ye touched Sai Lu's head, "But I hope you don't cling to absolute justice and absolute evil." While Sai Lu showed a happy smile on his face, he was also confused. Why? Because there is no absolute justice or absolute evil, and being tainted with sin does not mean you have to die. Bai Ye took this opportunity to try to enlighten Sai Lu. For example, someone once stole a bun to survive, which is considered to be tainted with sin, but he later saved countless people, so is this justice or evil? Faced with this question, Sai Lu's brain suddenly crashed. I don't know. So, no one can talk about absolute justice, and no one can talk about absolute evil. Bai Ye said, "Uka has done many evil things, so it is not a pity to die, but if some people just stole some things, they can be punished accordingly, but the crime is not punishable by death." His worries are not unnecessary. In the original novel, even the thief was lynched by Sai Lu, either eaten alive by Xiaobi or beheaded by Sai Lu. Regardless of whether the thief should die or not, Bai Ye is more worried that Sai Lu will gradually become distorted to the point of not being able to distinguish right from wrong, which will easily lead to many tragedies, and this is what Bai Ye is really worried about. I understand. Sai Lu lowered his head slightly. Although it is unknown whether Sai Lu listened to it or not, at least there was no conflict with Bai Ye. Only Bai Ye could say such words to Sai Lu. If it were someone else, Sai Lu would not listen to a word at all, and might even start killing if they disagreed. Bai Ye then said, "It may be a little difficult for you to accept, but I am sure I really want to help you, and you can talk to me at any time." "Yes." Sai Lu and Bai Ye still maintained the hug, and Sai Lu even hugged a little tighter at this moment. "Well, can Vice Captain Bai Ye be my master? I feel like I need more experience." Suddenly at this moment, she asked Bai Ye to be her master. P.S. 3 more chapters are finished, please give me some gifts. Chapter 25. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Will you become my disciple? Bai Ye was slightly surprised. He had not expected that Sai Lu would want to be his apprentice. "No." Sai Lu asked softly. "Not that it is impossible, but I can't actually teach you anything. If you don't mind, then it's fine." Bai Ye said frankly. His strength was obtained through the dual divine powers and the system points, so he felt that he could not teach Sai Lu anything. Could it be that he could teach Sai Lu points? However, Sai Lu did not mind at all and said directly, "Then I will call you master in the future." Bai Ye nodded slightly. At this time, he paid attention to the burping puppy next to Sai Lu. Uka was probably eaten by this puppy. "Sai Lu, what is this?" Bai Ye asked immediately. "Oh, yes, I should introduce it to the master first. This is Xiaobi, my partner who I just met today." Sai Lu immediately picked up Xiaobi. "It's so cute, but it looks different from ordinary puppies." Bai Ye intuitively felt that Xiaobi was not simple. "Yes, because it is an imperial weapon, it seems to be called, Magic Beast Transformation, 100-Armed Giant, and it feels too troublesome, so I call it Xiaobai." Sai Lu explained. "So it's an imperial weapon." Bai Ye was a little surprised. Now he saw a new imperial weapon, which should be considered a biological imperial weapon, weapon-type imperial weapon, blood-type imperial weapon, biological-type imperial weapon. These are the types of imperial weapons that Bai Ye knows so far, and there are probably more types. Speaking of which, he almost forgot that he should read the ancient books that record various imperial weapons when he has time to learn about the abilities of those imperial weapons. In this way, if he encounters an enemy who uses an imperial weapon, at least he will not be caught off guard by the special ability. "Chi!" Xiaobai said happily. It seems that Xiaobai also feels the justice of the master and likes the master very much. Sai Lu said immediately. Bai Ye thought that Xiaobai was influenced by Sai Yu, not because he had any sense of justice. With the death of Uka, the former captain of the Imperial Capital Guard, Bai Ye took over Uka's original position. Of course, Sai Yu and Xiaobai, who killed Uka, were not punished, because Sai Yu was a very important imperial weapon user. Uka had many controversies, and after his death, no one even spoke for him. The people cheered. After all, they had suffered for a long time. Uka had done a lot of dirty things to the civilians before. Bai Ye and Sai Yu continued to work normally in the Imperial Capital Guard. In addition to handling various affairs every day, Bai Ye practiced with Sai Yu, and went to the study to check books about imperial weapons. In a spacious martial arts training ground, Bai Ye and Sai Yu were sparring again, sparring with bare hands, and Sai Yu improved his physical skills in this way. Sai Yu's physical skills are getting stronger and stronger, but he is always suppressed by Bai Ye, because Bai Ye's Mangekyō Sharingan is too buggy. Even if he doesn't use the eye technique of hollowing, the inside of the Mangekyō Sharingan is also foul. After today's competition, Sai Yu sat on the ground to rest, drinking water in big gulps. "Thank you for troubling master today, I will work harder." "There is no need to be too strong, just be moderate," Bai Ye said. "I know, but I still want to become stronger as soon as possible, otherwise I can't eradicate evil," Sai Yu said in a deep voice. "It started again. Didn't I tell you that before?" Bai Ye said. "But speaking of it, what evil do you want to eradicate next?" "I have listened to what master said. I have thought it through these days. Different degrees of sin should indeed be punished to different degrees, but I still don't know the specific situation, so I may have to ask master at any time in the future." Since Bai Ye said those words to Sai Lu that day, she has been thinking about this problem every day. After thinking about it, she feels that what master said is indeed right. "Well, you can ask me any questions at any time." Bai Ye nodded slightly. It seems that Sai Lu has listened to it, and what he said before is not in vain. "As for the evil that I want to eradicate, of course it is the rebels of the Revolutionary Army and the foreign ethnic groups, especially the assassination organization Night Raid that has suddenly become active in the imperial capital recently. I think they are the greatest evil," Sai Lu continued. "It is hard to say whether those revolutionary armies are just or evil. I think you should think about this carefully." Bai Ye pondered. Anyone who knows history knows that the rise and fall of feudal dynasties is almost an inevitable law. According to they, it has existed for thousands of years, so this empire has also existed for thousands of years, which is amazing. In this world, the empire has entered a very classic dark and corrupt end. It is normal for the revolutionary army to appear. There is no justice or evil. Then the revolutionary army overthrew the old empire and established the next feudal dynasty, entering the cycle of history again. But those revolutionary armies destroyed the peace of the empire and made the people suffer. Isn't this evil? Seilu couldn't help but say, but in Bai Ye's impression, this is not the case. In fact, as far as I know, most of the members of the revolutionary army are precisely those impoverished and suffering civilians, and the official who was assassinated by the night raid 2 days ago was honest on the surface, but in fact he had had dealings with Uka behind the scenes, and his true face was a corrupt official. Bai Ye said, "Of course, we can't just look at the appearance of things. Whether it is your point of view or my point of view, wait and see first, see it with your own eyes, and then make a judgment." Seilu nodded obediently. "Okay, I really should ask Master more. I seem to know too little. As for those foreign ethnic groups, it depends on the situation. Most of the situations seem to be invasion of territory and burning, killing and looting. This situation is definitely not justice. No matter how much civil strife there is in the empire, it is not the turn of foreign ethnic groups to interfere." Bai Ye continued. He remembered that Istetha's people were killed by the invading northern foreign ethnic groups, so there is no need to say more. In his concept, it has nothing to do with justice and evil. As long as his country is invaded by foreigners, they must be punished no matter how far away they are. "I understand. I heard that General Istetha went to fight against foreign races a while ago. After that, General Nagashita defected. It is said that she led a group of rebels to join the revolutionary army. However, the rebels were all hunted down by General Istetha, and only Nagashita was taken away by the revolutionary army." Seilu suddenly remembered this incident. "I guess General Nagashita saw something when fighting against foreign races." Bai Ye guessed casually. After all, Istetha's methods were cruel and merciless to the enemy. General Nagashita probably couldn't stand the scene of burning, killing and looting. Chapter 26. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There is actually no right or wrong in this matter. Istetha is not cruel to other ethnic groups, but other ethnic groups will also harm innocent civilians on the border of the empire. Unless the unification of multiple ethnic groups is achieved, this kind of feud will never end. After all, this world has not developed to the level of civilization before Bai Ye traveled through time, just like it is unreasonable to criticize and attack the ancient feudal dynasty with modern moral values. In the feudal era, it was almost impossible to treat enemy prisoners and enemy civilians preferentially, and the quality of the army could not be very high. It can only be said that General Nagashita is probably too kind. Of course, the atrocities of the army led by Istetha are just an opportunity. The most fundamental reason should still be the darkness of the empire. As a general, Nagashita should know those dark and corrupt phenomena. General Nagashita has now become a member of the revolutionary army. No, she should not be called a general, but a rebel army. Seilu said, but the most dangerous enemy at the moment is the night raid, which is rampant in the imperial capital. The members of the night raid seem to be all imperial weapon users. Let's wait and see for now. Unless they kill innocent people or come to trouble us, there is no need to regard them as enemies. Bai Ye said lightly, as long as the night raid really specializes in assassinating those corrupt officials and evil people, he has no intention of being hostile to the night raid. The darkness and corruption of the empire are caused by those assassinated targets. Bai Ye even hopes that they will be killed. Today, someone came to the palace to ask to see the minister. In the palace, the current minister is eating and drinking. His name is Ernest, and he is the real culprit who made the entire empire so dark and corrupt. He looks fat, but he is actually a strong man. He received strict training when he was young, which is why he can maintain a healthy body despite overeating all day long. Lord Ernest, the captain of the Imperial Capital Guard, Oka, was killed. It was the deputy captain Bai Ye and an imperial weapon named Seilu who did it. I feel that Bai Ye's behavior does not seem to be in the same group with us. The man who asked to see the minister was also an official of high status. It was obvious that he was related to Oka. At this time, he knelt on one knee in front of the minister and said, at the same time, he was also one of the corrupt officials who were in cahoots with Minister Ernest. I have heard about it. The news of Oka's death is really sad. It made me eat 2 more sausages. Minister Ernest was crying and saying some nonsense. The food in his hand almost never stopped. The man seemed to have long been accustomed to the appearance of Minister Ernest, and he didn't react much. But you don't have to worry about Bai Ye. He is a talent recommended by General Esteth himself. Minister Ernest's expression changed faster than turning a page, and he suddenly became calm. I also heard that Oka invited 3 masters of the Royal Fist Temple to assassinate Bai Ye, but they were all killed by Bai Ye. No wonder General Esteth thinks so highly of him. I suddenly feel that he is probably a very qualified killer. There is a cooperative relationship between Esteth and Minister Ernest, and Minister Ernest knows that Esteth is only interested in war and doesn't care about politics at all, so he trusts Esteth very much. He needs Esteth to resist foreign enemies and consolidate the rule of the empire, and he also regards Esteth as a trump card to deal with General Bud. General Bud is the supreme commander of the Imperial Army. Before Esteth grew up, General Bud was the strongest in the empire. Even after Esteth grew up, the two were equally strong in the empire. So Minister Ernest was very afraid of the threat of General Bud. For Esteth, Minister Ernest gave her the military power she wanted, and even the imperial weapon, satisfying her desire for fighting and killing, and Esteth has always been interested in fighting with General Bud, so she is happy to cooperate with Minister Ernest. As Bai Ye is a talent promoted by Esteth himself, Minister Ernest naturally prefers Bai Ye to that Uka. He hopes that the people under Esteth are as strong as possible, so that he doesn't have to worry about General Bud. Is that so? The man was a little panicked when he heard it. I am ignorant, I didn't know that it was a talent that General Esteth valued. Because he knew that Minister Ernest was moody, and he might die if he was not careful. However, Minister Ernest ignored him at all, but thought about Bai Ye's affairs. Let's do this, let him transfer to the assassination department team work, and expand the assassination team to deal with the night raid and the revolutionary army. Yes. The man didn't dare to say anything more, for fear of saying something wrong and angering the minister. When he left the palace in disgrace, Esteth just walked in from outside. Esteth didn't even look at the man. Esteth, it's a good thing that you're back. The Bai Ye you introduced before has done some interesting things recently. Minister Ernest looked very welcoming to Esteth's return. Oh. Tell me about it, Esteth said with interest. Unlike other people who had to kneel in front of Minister Ernest, Esteth was completely equal. The original captain of the Imperial Capital Guard, Oka, died a few days ago. That guy invited 3 masters of the Royal Fist Temple to assassinate Bai Ye, but they were killed by Bai Ye. He is worthy of being the talent you recommended. Minister Ernest said. Of course, 3 masters of the Royal Fist Temple alone can't kill him. Esteth didn't show any surprise on her face. She knew that Bai Ye was very powerful. And he also accepted an apprentice. I think his name is Sealiu. His apprentice is also interesting, and he successfully matched the imperial weapon, 100-armed giant. Minister Ernest seemed to be talking to Esteth, and also seemed to be talking to himself. Suddenly I feel that it is not bad for this imperial weapon user to switch to the assassination team. Sealiu? Esteth didn't know Sealiu at all, but the name sounded like a girl's name. Her eyes were slightly cold. Is she a woman? It seems so. I'm not too clear. I just remember that it seems to be a little sister who always talks about justice. Minister Ernest hardly ever left the palace, and of course his subordinates told him about Bai Ye and Sealiu. I understand. I'll go to the Imperial Guard. After saying that, Esteth turned and left. Minister Ernest immediately muttered to himself in confusion, Huh? Why do I feel that General Esteth seems a little unhappy today? Maybe it's an illusion. P.S. General Bud is very strong in the comics, and his strength is actually in line with the title of the strongest. He is just a stubborn and loyal royalist. The animation may have changed him to be a little ugly. Chapter 27. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not long ago, General Esteth led his army to attack the foreign tribes in the southwest, and returned victorious in just a few days. This was a feat that no general had ever achieved before. Of course, this does not include General Bud, who basically guards the imperial capital, especially the palace, and does not go out to fight. As a result, General Esthethe's reputation has risen again. Esthethe is surrounded by her fans walking on the street, all the way to the headquarters of the Imperial Capital Guard. That seems to be General Esthethe. Why did General Esthethe suddenly come to us? Is it because of Captain Uka's previous incident? But that's not right, isn't the current Captain Bai Ye General Esthethe's man? Shoo, don't talk about Captain Uka anymore, it will be difficult if the current Captain Bai Ye hears it. At this time, the appearance of Esthethe attracted the attention of the surrounding guards. Esthethe randomly found a person and asked directly, "Do you know where Bai Ye is?" The man was in awe of General Esthethe. "Captain Bai Ye should be in the training ground, I will go and inform Captain Bai Ye now." "No need, I will go to find him in person," Esthethe said lightly. At the same time, Bai Ye was doing daily training with Selu. During the break, he opened the atlas of imperial equipment that he had just found in the study. There are very few books that record imperial equipment, and there is only one such atlas with sketches. Although the record of imperial equipment above is not complete, only a dozen imperial equipment are included, but even knowing only a dozen imperial equipment is quite useful. And the first imperial equipment in the atlas is National Guardian Mecha God, Supreme Throne. It is the first and strongest imperial weapon, so it is called the Supreme Imperial Weapon. Only the Emperor with royal blood can use it. It is said that it has power comparable to that of gods. Almost no one has ever seen this imperial weapon, and its exclusive secret skills are not yet known. I saw the Supreme Imperial Weapon owned by the Emperor right away, but it seemed like I didn't see anything after looking at it. Its ability is completely unknown. Next, Bai Ye saw various imperial weapons such as knives, swords, rings, gloves, and armor, as well as the 100-armed giant or Xiaobi, and roughly understood the abilities of these imperial weapons. Among them, the ones that he was more concerned about were one-cut kilt Murasame and dimensional array Shangri-La. Murasame is also called the demon sword Murasame. As long as you are cut by this sword, even if you are only scratched, you will quickly die from the curse poison, and there is no way to detoxify. If you don't have enough information, facing the imperial weapon user with Murasame, you will be finished if you are not careful. The reason why the other Taigu Shangri-La made him feel concerned is because it is a space-type Taigu that can instantly transfer the target to the previously marked location. If it is directly transferred to a place like a volcano, but Bai Ye is just concerned. As a time-space type, the double godly is many times stronger than the Shangri-La Taigu, and of course the corresponding consumption is much higher. Unfortunately, there is no description of Esthethe's Taigu. He did not see the blood-type Taigu in the atlas, so it is certain that there is no Taigu for Esthethe. After learning about these dozen Taigu, Bai Ye suddenly felt that the Taigu was indeed very strong. In the future, when facing Taigu users, it is better to be cautious. "Master, are those Taigu you are looking at?" At this time, Selu was resting on Bai Ye's shoulder. The high-intensity training just now made her very tired. Xiaobi was lying on Bai Ye's thigh, motionless like a puppy doll. At this moment, the door of the training ground was suddenly kicked open by someone. Bai Ye looked up and found that it was Esthethe who kicked the door open. "Why are you here?" Bai Ye asked with a little surprise. He hadn't seen Esthethe for a while, but she suddenly appeared today. Esthethe didn't answer. She looked at the orange-haired girl leaning on Bai Ye's shoulder, and her cold blue eyes flickered. The temperature around seemed to drop a little. Seeing that it was General Esthethe, Selu immediately stood up and saluted. "General Esthethe." Xiaobi also rolled from Bai Ye's thigh to the ground. Esthethe didn't respond to Selu, but walked directly to Bai Ye. "Didn't I say it before? I don't want to see such a thing again." Bai Ye was slightly stunned. He didn't react to what Esthethe was saying at first, but he immediately remembered. "No. You were serious about what you said at that time." If Esthethe hadn't suddenly brought it up, he would have almost forgotten it. Selu didn't understand what the master and General Esthethe were talking about at all. He looked at the two of them with a confused look on his face, not understanding what was going on. "Of course I'm serious," Esthethe said bluntly without any shyness. "Well, we were just taking a break just now, and it's different from the last time," Bai Ye explained. "That's right, because my master and I were too passionate, and I was almost exhausted," Selu said with a smile. Bai Ye's mouth twitched slightly. "Don't say it's so easily misunderstood." However, Esthethe didn't understand that kind of thing at all, so she didn't react at all. She was very realistic and thought that Bai Ye and Celia were practicing martial arts before. By the way, why do you dislike my contact with other girls so much? At this time, Bai Ye couldn't help but ask Esteth. Yes, why? Actually, I don't know. Estetha's face was slightly confused. She still knew nothing about love, so she naturally didn't understand what was going on with her feelings. You don't know either. Okay. Bai Ye was at a loss now, although he had imagined a possibility that Esteth liked him, that's why it was like this, but he felt that this possibility was extremely low, because with Estetha's personality, she was a complete war maniac and was unlikely to be interested in things like love. Now it seems that this is indeed the case. Fortunately, he didn't take it for granted, otherwise it would be too embarrassing. Bai Ye didn't want to think about so much nonsense. Maybe Esteth was just a queen with such a strong desire for dominance. So do you know why? At this time, Esteth asked Bai Ye back. How could I know this? Even you don't know it. Bai Ye said helplessly. Esteth fell into a brief silence. Just when she thought about it carefully, she suddenly realized that she was a little strange and no longer the same as before. She shouldn't be affected by such things. Why is this? Esteth was puzzled. The more so, the more she wanted to know the reason. Then she could only find the answer in Bai Ye, because it was Bai Ye who made her like this. P.S. The third update is finished. Please give me some gifts. Chapter 28. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Esteth put aside his messy thoughts. The minister seems to want to transfer you to the assassination unit. At this time, Esteth said to Bai Ye. What is that place? Responsible for assassination work, Bai Ye asked. It's about the same. It mainly deals with those rebels, such as the night raid that has been popular recently. I don't know more details. The spy agency is responsible for the assassination unit. Esteth roughly explained. Anyway, it can be regarded as a promotion. Your promotion speed is quite fast. It is estimated that you will be able to replace Nageshitan's general position in a short time. So are you going there in the next 2 days? Bai Ye asked. He is still interested in this new job. There is a chance to contact those rebels, in other words, the Revolutionary Army. Bai Ye wants to find out his position as soon as possible, whether to be promoted all the way to the top of the military officer, the general, or to help the Revolutionary Army overthrow the empire and establish a new empire, or he could be a royalist, protecting the current young emperor and eradicating the minister who was the culprit, as for the minister at the top of the civil service, or becoming the emperor. Himself, he had no interest in it. He was neither good at politics nor interested in it. He would not be so arrogant as to think about managing such a large empire. Since he had traveled to this world, he must do something. He couldn't just go out and hunt dangerous species every day. That would be too boring, but now Bai Ye couldn't determine his position. He didn't know the specific military strength of the empire, the Revolutionary Army, and the foreign ethnic groups. He certainly couldn't help the Revolutionary Army overthrow the empire all at once. What if the empire and the Revolutionary Army were both defeated, and the foreign ethnic groups took advantage of the chaos to enter? Wouldn't that be the situation at the end of the Ming dynasty? It's probably these few days. Something happened to the assassination unit, and it's in a state of chaos now. Esteth said. What happened? Bai Ye asked with a little curiosity. The 7 elite members of the assassination team died or fled. Even the manager of the 7 elite members was killed and the imperial weapon Murasame was taken away. The one who killed the manager seemed to be a girl named Akame. It is said that she has defected to Night Raid. Esteth said lightly. She did not feel any regret for the death of those people. She was a little interested in Night Raid. She heard that all the members in it were imperial weapon users. She liked to fight against powerful opponents and enjoy the feeling of killing. She even let Nageshitan go on purpose, otherwise she could have killed Nageshitan before the Revolutionary Army arrived. She was waiting for Nageshitan to come back so that she could enjoy the battle more. This was Estetha's bad taste. Murasame. Bai Ye had just seen this imperial weapon in the picture book. So, the elite members of the assassination team are almost gone. No wonder they want me and Selu to go. Bai Ye said in a deep voice. Probably. I heard that there is also a black-eyed person in the assassination team who is also an imperial weapon user. She did not defect, but the strength of the others is not that good. Isdeth said bluntly, and this is also a good opportunity. The assassination team is now empty and shaky. If you can do something, it will be easier to get promoted. That's right. Bai Ye's eyes then looked at Selu. Then what is your wish, Selu? My wish? Selu was stunned for a moment, as if she didn't expect the master to ask about her wish. In her cognition, she must absolutely obey the orders of the Empire, so she has never considered the issue of will. I am definitely willing, and I also want to enforce justice with the master, don't you think so, Xiaobi? Selu said immediately. Xiaobi jumped up and responded. That's it, I should return to the front line soon. After saying that, Isdeth left. She definitely still prioritized enjoying the war. After all, she didn't know what her feelings for Bai Ye were. As for the fact that Seiryu would act with Bai Ye in the assassination team, Isdeth didn't care too much. As long as she didn't see Bai Ye having close contact with other women, she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. She wasn't so overbearing as to completely prevent Bai Ye from having contact with women. When Isdeth left, Seiryu looked at Isdeth's departing figure with admiration. You're worthy of being General Isdeth, rushing to exorcise evil so soon. By the way, Master and General Isdeth seem to be very familiar. Did they know each other a long time ago? Seiryu asked a little curiously. No, actually we just met not long ago. Bai Ye replied. Huh? Really? Seiryu was surprised and said, it seems that the relationship between Master and General Isdeth is very special. In fact, she knew nothing about that, so she couldn't tell what was so unusual about it. The next day, Bai Ye received a message, someone will be sent to replace him in Sai Lu, and he and Sai Lu can go directly to the assassination unit to serve. Since the two original managers of the Empire assassination unit died at the hands of Akame, Bai Ye's next position in the assassination unit is the new manager, and Sai Lu will serve as his assistant, and their duty is to train the remaining members of the assassination unit, who are said to be children under 20 years old, about the same age as Bai Ye and Sai Lu. At this time, Bai Ye has obtained the personnel list of the Empire Assassination Unit and is on the way to the Assassination Unit base. The list not only has names, but also weapons, strengths and weaknesses, and origins. Bai Ye glanced at it and found that these people's origins actually have one thing in common, that is, orphans. Specially select orphans to train them into killers. Bai Ye thought to himself, and suddenly felt that this behavior was quite classic. In the list, he saw a taiga user, and several other servant users, and the rest used ordinary weapons. The taiga user was Kurwa, Akane's sister, and the taiga she possessed was March of the Dead, 8 houses. The ability of the taiga was to control the creatures killed by this taiga through curses, and up to 8 corpses could be controlled, and all of them had the strength they had when they were alive. The disadvantage is that the more corpses this taiga controls at the same time, the taiga user's own strength will be reduced. The more it weakens, in general, this is a very powerful imperial tool. Red pupil and black pupil. Bai Ye muttered to himself, thinking about something. P.S. Thanks to want to read the fairy tale again for a total of 137.7 gift points, thanks to Xiao Sir for a God certification, thanks to Huang Hun for a total of 55 gift points, and thanks to all readers for their gifts. There are too many to list one by one, thank you very much. Chapter 29. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The base of the Imperial Assassination Force. Due to many things that happened recently, the atmosphere inside the base is quite heavy. The Elite 7 was originally the most promising because they were the 7 most outstanding elites among the children who received rigorous assassination training. As a result, there is no one left now, either dead or running away. Especially Akame directly defected and took the Imperial weapon Murasame away. Now the remaining members of the assassination force are all those who originally performed outside the 7th place. They are facing the crisis of being abandoned by the Empire, because the remaining strength of the assassination force is not as good as before. If their performance is too poor in the future, then the Empire is likely to abandon them and train the next batch of children. The result of being abandoned is naturally punishment. According to the rules of the assassination force, even if the body is weak to a certain extent, it will be directly punished. To put it bluntly, if there is no use value, it will be directly wiped out. What's more, the entire unit is abandoned, and the ending will definitely be worse than punishment. What should we do now? The biggest hope is Kurenetsu, right? She can use that imperial tool, which makes her much stronger than us. But the enemies we face are far more than just one imperial tool user, especially Akametsu who holds Murasame. There is no other way, we can only move forward step by step, but I heard that 2 people will be sent from the Imperial Capital Guard today to support our assassination team, and we don't know how strong they are. Imperial Capital Guard? Not to mention the Imperial tool users, it seems that there is not even a minister tool user among them. Let's not count on them, just rely on ourselves. In the base, there are only a few dozen people left in the assassination team, and everyone gathered together to discuss these things. Their biggest hope is Kurenetsu who has the Imperial Tool 8 rooms. Kurenetsu himself is also the 8th, the strongest under the Elite 7, in fact, to be more precise, Hei Tong was ranked 7th with Akaheim, because Akaheim carried Hei Tong through the test, but the elite team of the assassination unit did not allow relatives to exist, so Hei Tong was removed from the elite team and became the 8th. However, no one in the assassination unit knew about this matter, not even Hei Tong herself. At this time, Hei Tong was sitting in a corner in a daze, and it seemed that she was in a bad mood, and no one dared to approach her for the time being. It was undoubtedly because her sister Akaheim betrayed the Empire. She felt puzzled and resentful of her sister's betrayal of the Empire, and had to regard her sister as an enemy in the future. At this time, Bai Ye and Sai Lu had already arrived at the base of the Empire assassination unit by carriage. It was the building in front of them. "Are you Bai Ye and Sai Lu?" That the staff of the assassination unit came to meet Bai Ye and Sai Lu. This person was wearing a white lab coat and seemed to be an experimenter. Yes. Bai Ye nodded slightly. In comparison, Sai Lu was more lively. Yes. I am Sai Lu from the Imperial Capital Guard. Okay, then the reinforcement group will be handed over to you for management. Sometimes we need you to cooperate with our work. The staff said directly to Bai Ye and Sai Lu. Bai Ye just nodded and said nothing more. He had already understood the general situation of the assassination team, such as the assassination team was divided into the elite group and the reinforcement group, not to mention the elite group that no longer existed. The so-called enhanced group was forcibly injected with special drugs to improve their abilities because their abilities were not as good as the Elite 7. That's all Bai Ye knew for the time being. You have direct management rights over them, so you don't need to ask us. I'll take you to meet them first. Then, the staff took Bai Ye and Sai Lu to the place where the assassination team usually rested. The space here is quite large, and you can see dozens of boys and girls chatting and resting here. When the staff came in, they all stopped chatting. This is your new manager from now on, and this is also your superior. The staff briefly introduced Bai Ye and Sai Lu to the boys and girls. He had nothing to do next, and he left after saying this. At this time, the boys and girls began to discuss quietly. They were transferred from the Imperial Capital Guard, and they turned out to be our managers and superiors. They look about the same age as us, right? They feel much worse than the previous managers. It seems that we are really going to be abandoned. The managers transferred here are so unreliable. Because Bai Ye's appearance was handsome and a little immature, it aroused the doubts of these children. On the other hand, the manager of the elite group was one of the 4 Rakshasa ghosts of the previous generation of the Royal Fist Temple and the original owner of the Imperial Weapon Murasame. The manager of the enhanced group is also an experienced Imperial officer. As a result, the 2 young people who came to take over them now are similar to them, which inevitably makes them doubt. Although he couldn't hear clearly, seeing the reactions of these people, Bai Ye had realized something and laughed awkwardly. It seems that I was looked down upon. It seems that they don't know anything about the master, but with the master's ability, there is no problem at all. Seilu has great confidence in Bai Ye's ability. Ahem. At this time, Bai Ye coughed lightly, shifting everyone's attention to him, and then said, "Let me introduce myself first. My name is Bai Ye. I was originally the captain of the Imperial Capital Guard. I have a general understanding of your situation before I came here, so let's get along well next." Everyone nodded, although they doubted and were dissatisfied with Bai Ye. Bai Ye was their manager after all. They certainly did not dare to be rude to Bai Ye, let alone offend him, because the manager could directly decide their life and death. My name is Sai Lu, this is Xiao Bai, let's all cheer together. That at this time, Sai Lu also spoke. Sai Lu's face was full of a naive and simple smile, and Xiao Bai looked harmless, which made everyone in the assassination team feel even more unreliable. However, Sai Lu and Xiao Bai were not as simple as they seemed on the surface. Let me get to know you one by one. Bai Ye was going to get to know these people one by one according to the names on the list. After all, there were no portraits of them on the list. However, everyone looked surprised and weird. What's wrong? Bai Ye was immediately puzzled. That, the previous managers all called us by numbers. For example, I am number 24, which corresponds to the ranking. At this time, a girl stood up to explain. In short, the previous managers were too lazy to remember their names. After all, they were always used as objects and thrown away when they were about to break, which was also called discipline. Bai Ye nodded slowly. I see, but the past is the past, and the present is the present. From now on, I will call you by your names instead of numbers. Chapter 30. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Your name is Senna, right? You are the vassal who replaced Tsukushi's Prometheus. And you are Kelly, the former captain of Class B. Ajo, I remember you are the captain of Class C. Bai Ye asked everyone to report their names, and then he remembered their appearances one by one. Thanks to the Mangekyō Sharingan, he can almost remember everything he sees. For example, he saw the list on the carriage before, and he still remembers the information of everyone on the list. Sayu also followed Bai Ye and remembered the appearance and names of these future companions. Everyone was more and more surprised. This new manager actually cared so much about them. The other party didn't have any list in his hand, but as long as he heard their names, he could tell them one by one. It means that their information had been remembered before. Many people immediately changed their views on Bai Ye. Regardless of whether his strength was reliable or not, at least he seemed to be easy to get along with. However, they were not sure whether it was a false impression that he was deliberately testing them. Considering the possibility of deliberately testing them, they did not dare to relax their caution. Finally, it was the turn of Hei Tong, who was sitting in the corner. Although Bai Ye had not seen Hei Tong before, he had a very good memory. He did not hear Hei Tong's name in the last round, which meant that the last girl with black hair and black eyes should be Hei Tong. Compared with other members of the assassination team, Hei Tong's clothing was a bit special, a black belly-exposing outfit, a black short skirt and black stockings. She had a delicate figure, slightly long black short hair, and delicate and cute facial features, and her expression looked a little silly. Holding a katana in her hand, the handle of the katana was engraved with mysterious characters like a spell. This should be the imperial weapon Hachifu. Hei Tong. In addition, there was a snack bag on the table with Hei Tong's snacks written on it. If I'm not mistaken, you should be Hei Tong, right? At this time, Bai Ye spoke directly to Hei Tong. Yes. Hei Tong came back to her senses immediately and looked up at Bai Ye. She was instantly attracted by Bai Ye's blood-red eyes, because they were the same color as her sister Chi Tong's eyes, but the difference was that there were strange patterns in Bai Ye's blood-red eyes. Sister. Seeing the blood-red eyes, Hei Tong subconsciously shouted. No, I'm not your sister Chi Tong, I'm the new manager Bai Ye. Bai Ye denied in a flat tone. Sorry, I was a little absent-minded. Hei Tong lowered her head slightly. She naturally knew that her sister couldn't be here. It's okay. After the voice fell, Bai Ye turned around and prepared to return to the front of everyone. He found that Sai Lu was about to say something to Hei Tong, so he directly grabbed Sai Lu's collar and dragged her away. He could guess what Sai Yu wanted to say to Hei Tong, probably that Hei Tong was righteous and Chi Tong was evil, and he didn't want Sai Yu to instill this idea in others. You were originally divided into 4 classes, A, B, C, and D, but now there are more than 20 people left, so at most you can divide them into 2 classes, A and B. Bai Ye said to everyone, I will be in charge of Class A and Sayu will be in charge of Class B, and see how it works. The original 4 classes were not divided according to strength, and the strength of the 4 classes was very even. For the 2 classes now, he will also make a balanced distribution based on everyone's strength. As for the captain, Hei Tong will be the captain of Class A, and Kelly will continue to be the captain of Class B. Bai Ye continued, if you have any dissatisfaction, you can also directly raise it. Hearing this, most people shook their heads, and a few people remained silent. They are basically used to passively obeying orders, so how could they have any dissatisfaction? Bai Ye waited for a while, but no one spoke. Then let's decide this first. Starting tomorrow, we will have the first training since I took over. Hearing this, almost everyone's expression became solemn, because every training in the past, someone would get injured or even die, and the previous manager was also very strict. Once someone got injured, the whole class would be punished by imprisonment. If the injured person could not recover to a healthy state, he would be punished quickly, and his end would be miserable. Everyone nodded solemnly to indicate that they understood and were mentally prepared to accept the devil's training. That night, Bai Ye and Sai Lu naturally spent the night at the assassination unit base. Bai Ye made a training plan for tomorrow. The next morning, Bai Ye and Sai Yu set off with all the members of the assassination team. They left the imperial capital and headed in a certain direction. Captain Bai Ye, what is the content of our training this time? Halfway through, Team B Captain Kelly asked Bai Ye. Hunting dangerous species. Bai Ye responded casually. Hunting dangerous species. Kelly immediately looked very surprised. The faces of the others also showed varying degrees of surprise, because their previous training content was almost all about killing people, and there were many strong people who were stronger than the ministers. In comparison, hunting dangerous species seemed much easier. However, they immediately felt that they should not be too happy too early. If the commander wanted them to hunt special dangerous species or even super dangerous species, it would not be easy at all. That's right, the training content is to hunt dangerous species. The 2 classes will not act separately this time. Bai Ye said in detail, 20 level 2 dangerous species, 10 level 1 dangerous species, and 2 special dangerous species. This is the hunting goal you need to achieve. He also carried a map with him. This map drew the areas where dangerous species often appeared in the Empire. The areas outside the human city are basically the areas where dangerous species are active. The focus is on some areas where dangerous species frequently appear, and some areas where special dangerous species or even super dangerous species have a probability of appearing. After hearing this, everyone's eyes condensed. Fortunately, they didn't get too happy too early. This training was indeed a devilish difficulty. However, fortunately, Class A and Class B did not have to act separately. The strongest Hei Tong among them could share a lot of pressure. At this time, Bai Ye glanced at Hei Tong. Even during training, Hei Tong had to carry the bag of Hei Tong snacks with him. He couldn't help but be a little concerned. Is this really something as simple as snacks? At the same time, Hei Tong also noticed Bai Ye's eyes, and stared at Bai Ye for a while with a silly face, and suddenly seemed to understand something. Hei Tong immediately put the bag of snacks back with a cautious look, and looked at Bai Ye with a silly look. I won't share it with you. P.S. The 3rd update is finished. Please give me some gifts.